Hi, this is Brian King. You and I know that there was a tragic event in Charlottesville, Virginia recently, where there was a demonstration given by neo-Nazis. Uh, Espound, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically sharing their belief that the whites own this country, that they have more privilege, and that anybody else they deem inferior, whether it be because of skin color or religion, needs to get out, or even worse, needs to be eliminated. And to top it off, one of their supporters decided to jump into his car and drive into the crowd of counter-protesters. So somewhere in his belief system was the idea that people that disagreed with his thinking should be physically hurt. I don't know if he planned to kill the young lady that died, but he believed that violence was justified against those who disagree with him. How in the hell did this happen? What is it about this country, this culture, this world, that mindsets like this can be fostered? One thing you hear me talking a lot about is the suffering that we all share as part of the human condition. The suffering that we all share is rooted in judgment. The belief that things around us are not good enough. And then we develop a story around why things aren't good enough. And we use that story to increase our suffering. So at some point, the neo-Nazis decided that my life isn't good enough, and it's the fault of the African Americans, the Jews, the immigrants, or whoever else they decided to hate today. And because of that story, that mindset, they increased their suffering and caused themselves to feel angry, resentful, hateful. And then they got together and created some synergy or some kind of community around that, believing that what they stood for was correct and they had to force it upon the world. Has that ever happened before in history? A group of people getting together behind a very toxic ideology and punishing other people? We see that in terms of terrorist events. We've seen that in the form of the Westboro Baptist Church, the racist movements of the 70s, apartheid in South Africa back in the 70s and 80s. Why does this happen? Where do these ideas come from? It's not only rooted in judgment about other people, it's also rooted in this belief that we are separate from everybody else, that it's us and them, that things that differentiate us, skin color, religion, are somehow exclusionary criteria. You're not one of my people because you're Jewish. You're not one of my people because you don't believe in the God I believe in. You're not one of my people because you weren't born here. Why don't we have more inclusive criteria? One thing we do know about this exclusionary criteria, especially when it leads to hate, is that hate has never once solved a problem in human history. Not once. It's created a lot of problems. It's hurt a lot of people, started many wars, and cost a lot of lives, but no one's ever benefited from hate. Let me ask you a question. What do you believe about the country we live in? Do you believe that it's finders keepers, like the folks that moved in and decimated the native people population, wiping out the natives? You can't call them Native Americans because this is not America. America is what we called it. All the tribes that lived off the land way back then. Trusting people, generous people that were betrayed by the white settlers. And their narrative justified wiping out these tribes was that they were the enemy. They were dangerous somehow. They were savages that needed to be done away with. An ideology, a mindset that excluded them, made them inferior and worthy of mistreatment. The slaves that were brought to this country, same nonsense. They're less than because they are different. They live differently. Their priorities are different from ours. So we have a right to exploit them. That kind of thinking has been the case for the history of our country. As much as we say, we're number one, please, we have to recognize the shadows, the darkness in our culture. We can't just shake our pom-poms and emphasize the stuff we think is really neat. We need to look at the dark spots and do something about it. Because as long as they are there, they will continue to drag our country down. Right now, we have a political party mindset that's all about excluding people. Build a wall, make it illegal for people to come here because they're from the wrong country. Last time I checked, our, quote, American culture is a hodgepodge of other cultures. We borrow from everybody. Any culture that's ever touched this soil. Ever hear that the saying, Taco Tuesday? People that adopted that meal, that food from Mexico. Now, Cinco de Mayo. I know more than just people from Mexico or whoever celebrates that getting into it. St. Patrick's Day? You're not Irish, but you can sure as heck celebrate. So tell me how this justification of excluding people works. Because without this diversity, there would be no such thing as American culture. We would not have the richness that we do. What else do you believe about this country? Do you believe that it's a land of opportunity? Bring me the wretched refuse. You're hungry, you're tired, you're poor. That's written on the Statue of Liberty. Because there's a party politically that doesn't believe any of it. That things, if you're poor or you're sick, it's your fault, and they've got no obligation, morally or any other way, to help you, to give you a hand up. That you deserve to be screwed. Best of luck to you. Where does that thinking come from? At what point did it become rational or the moral high ground to look down on other people and say, your problem is none of my business, I don't care, it's all about me? I don't think like that. I hope to hell that you don't think like that. Because if you can't support your neighbor, if you can't help someone that's down on their luck, how can the idea of being helpful, being considerate, being compassionate, how can that ever become a part of our culture if you don't practice it, if you don't even believe it? Because you're the wrong color, the wrong religion, you're not one of my people, therefore I exclude you. I deem you not worthy of my time, my attention, or my resources. That's what the shadow part of our culture believes and practices. We look at times of crisis, 9/11, the Boston bombing. We see people rallying together and helping each other out, complete strangers, running into the line of fire, into danger to help people out in times of crisis. Why can we not also be that available and that willing under ordinary circumstances? Why must it only be in the moments where heroes are needed? You can be a hero to somebody else because when they felt ignored by the world, you sat down with them and you gave them your last $5. You bought them lunch so they wouldn't starve that day. Or you just listened because they needed someone to hear them. That is something that is not practiced enough in our country. That's something that's not spoken about. But that's what's needed in order to make this country what it can be, to make us as human beings what we can be, living from a compassionate place. What do you believe about diversity? One of the things I believe about diversity, not only in terms of people, but in terms of the plant kingdom. I can't remember the number. My wife and I really like orchids. I think it was something like there's 400 different species of orchids. Holy cow. Why are there 400 species of orchids? Well, nature must have decided that it was a good idea, and having that kind of variety helped in some way. The vegetables you eat. Not everything is corn. There's all kinds of different vegetables, different kinds of fruits. Variety is hardwired into the universe. But when it is elevated to the human being, all of a sudden diversity is bad. You speak a different language. You're a different color. Bad, bad, bad. Are the people that believe this not paying attention to the fact that diversity helps them be alive? How many organs do you have in your body? You have a liver that handles everything, digestion, thinking, moving blood through your body? Hell no. You've got a lot of different organs that work in concert with each other to keep you alive. Diversity of ideas that result in innovation, that move society forward. It's diversity. So all of these people that are screaming that diversity in some way, shape, or form is bad and should be punished, these people are not paying attention. They are thinking solely of themselves. They are thinking from a place of fear, a place of scarcity. You're taking our jobs. You should be punished. Last time I checked, there are tens of thousands of jobs that remain unfilled by anyone. If you start looking, you'll find work. Chances are what keeps you from doing any of those jobs is your own stinking pride, not somebody from another country with a different skin color. They're not the problem. You are the problem. That's what I think for the most part. That's what comes up for me when I think about what happened in Charlottesville and what it represents and what it says about the deeper issues in our culture. So hopefully you'll keep up that conversation. Let's talk more about it. Because it's a dialogue that can't just come up when bad things happen. It's something we need to keep talking about so we can stay in touch with our values as an individual, as a member of a partnership, whether it be married or dating. What are the values in your family? What are you prepared to model on a daily basis in terms of what is possible for yourself, what is possible in relationships, as far as compassion, kindness, generosity goes? Because the more people that embrace that thinking and practice it, the greater the likelihood that that message will be louder than the message of hate that caused what happened in Charlottesville. This has been Brian. Thank you so much for watching. I deeply appreciate you. Take care. We'll talk again soon.